I'm Mel Barrett.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie.
And welcome to Something's Off, a true crime podcast where we talk about cases that are just sort of off. Or what the fuck.
Yeah. We have a few things we're talking about today in this episode, right?
We do.
We're talking about Sergeant Goode. We're talking about sidebar news. We're talking about Cox. And we're talking about some new reporting from Ted Daniels that I think is amazing.
Very
so,
interesting.
Yeah. Let's get to it. That's something you want to do real quick first, though, right?
Yeah. So we've had... we were asking for tips. If you like the content, Rebecca did her public radio job for us, and I just want to say we're going to say thank you to several people at the end of the episode, but I wanted to give you a heads up that that's coming, and to also say thank you very much. It's been amazing and so helpful to us, so thank you for leaving tips for us, and we're going to say your name at the end of the episode. So
Mel, this would be a good time for you to put the graphic down below with your Venmo so people can tip us, a thing that you hate asking for, but I'm going to keep you make you do, so put it right here. Okay,
thanks Rebecca. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then one other thing, the YouTube, so we're still getting used to YouTube. This is not a normal platform for us. We normally do mostly audio. But YouTube has approved us for membership. So I guess if you like our content, we have a couple of tiers available, and you can just click join on the main page of YouTube. And the only thing I'm going to ask is please be patient with us because we're still learning a lot about this.
Yeah.
So if you like the content and you want to support and have access to some extras, then, join. It's $2.99 and I think $5.99 for the 2 tiers. So
amazing. Good job.
Yeah,
Good job with the sales. Good job.
But I have no idea what's going on. Okay.
It's going to be awesome.
Let's get into it because I know this is an extra episode. Well, this is not an extra episode. This is a bonus episode.
Yes.
But Rebecca has to leave in like an hour. So we're going to try to fit this into an hour.
Sock it in.
Yeah. So why don't we start with the big one, which is Sergeant Sean Goode of the Canton Police Department, who this week was put on administrative leave with pay.
Mm-hmm.
And the Canton Police Department is not telling us exactly why. It's an administrative issue, obviously. But we have heard from local Massachusetts reporting that it has something to do with Michael Proctor's text.
Yes.
Which
tells me people have access to these texts. Well, Goode is a very important figure in the Karen Read case, even though he's a lesser-known name. He was a first responder at the scene along with Lank. He was the one who I was on dispatch when the 911 call came in.
Yes.
He went to high school in Canton with Michael Proctor's sister, which doesn't mean he was like colluding with Michael Proctor's sister, but it just demonstrates he is part of the incestuous stuff in this case. He is the one, according to Proctor, who along with Lank gave Proctor the initial information about initial interviews on the scene. He's the one who told Jen McCabe to knock on the door of her brother-in-law's house to wake up the family because he thought she'd be a quote friendly face. He's the one who amended his report. Do you want to talk about his report amendment? That was so crazy.
Yeah, so there's a couple more things. I just want to get into a few more connections and a major lie that he told on the stand, and then we can talk a little bit about his report. So not only did he go to school with Courtney Proctor, he also went to high school with Selectman Chris Albert's sister, with the sister-in-law of Chris Albert. But he also admitted to being friendly with their brother Kevin Albert, who was another detective in Canton.
We know
and
Kevin.
I think perhaps, yes, we know Kevin. I think perhaps one of the most interesting things that happened is that Goode lied on the stand when he was asked if he had ever been to 34 Fairview Road previously in the past, and he said no. But that was a flat-out lie because a few years prior, Tim Albert, the youngest Albert brother, had been in a hit and run that was pretty bad, and he fled the scene, and he fled and went right to 34 Fairview Road, where Lank and Goode showed up to try to find him. So, flat out lie. To me, that tells me that he's trying to protect the Alberts, obviously.
Right. He also lied, by the way, likely lied, saying that he doesn't remember seeing Higgins in person at the police department at 1:30 in the morning. When we now have video of Higgins walking into the comms room for a couple minutes, he's like, I don't remember. Maybe I just saw him on the screen. And it's like, everybody remembers what happened that night, dude. Everybody remembers because that was the night that all the shit went down. So that's likely a stretch of the truth, to be generous.
Yeah. And he was born and raised in Canton. You know, Michael Proctor lived in Canton. So to me, it feels like there are 4 characters here: Proctor, Lank, Goode, and Gallagher.
Gallagher. Yeah. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Mr. Gallagher, man. I want him next.
yeah, so Gallagher, Goode, and Lank were the first 3 Canton police officers on the scene, and Goode supplied the leaf blower.
Mm-hmm. What a genius, innovative idea, according to the audit of the Canton Police Department.
You know, the more I think about it too, I'm like, I know that they kept testifying that they were like, this was like such a smart idea that we thought we had. And the more I think about it, I'm like, were they actually trying to destroy evidence?
No.
Like, was that?
No. I think at this point, and I was just talking with Kevin about this upstairs. I think at this point, you have to ask the question: what would have happened if this didn't happen at the Alberts house? It would be completely different. And what would have happened if it had been a teacher and not a cop involved, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think at this point, they're all hot because it happened at Brian Albert's house and because they know it's a cop who died. So like they're just like in this like, we got to get this done, like mode that would be far less responsible and far more urgent than if it had been a civilian who died on a civilian's lawn, or you know what I mean, whose dead body was found on a civilian's lawn. So I think that a lot of this stuff was driven initially by those 2 types of panic. It wasn't yet we are going to pin it on Karen Read yet. At this point, it was like keep the Alberts insulated because they're buddies. And a cop died. That's my opinion.
So we'll get into the report in just a second, but to the lead up to the report, Goode asked Jen McCabe to go wake up Brian and Nicole in the house. And I think he testified to something like, she was a friendly face that would be knocking on their door at 6 a.m. with a blizzard going on.
So not important for the face to be friendly.
Not that you're right. That shouldn't matter if it's a crime scene on someone's lawn. So Jen goes in and she does, her whole Nicole, Brian, all that, whatever.
Running up the stairs, not seeing the dog.
And meanwhile, Chloe doesn't freak out at all when some person bursts into the bedroom and whatever. So once she's inside, then Goode and Lank go inside and they're there for about 20 minutes, 19 minutes or so. And they are questioning, put that in quotes, the Alberts because they didn't separate anybody, which was established at the trial. They definitely didn't search the house. They definitely didn't try to match up any, cocktail glasses that might have been in the house. And a very interesting point that I will say Microdots pointed out in their latest video, which was only about 9 minutes long. It's a pretty quick watch. And I thought it was a pretty good video. It was very factual. But in the video, they play the audio of Goode calling back to dispatch and speaking with Kelly Dever and asking her to confirm what time Jen McCabe called into 911. Now, that was the second call into 911. The first one came in at 5-ish a.m., and it was Carrie Roberts, like, being jokey and friendly with Goode on the dispatch line. And then Jen McCabe called around 6:04. So he calls to check in with Kelly Dever. She confirms that Jen McCabe called his line, because he says my feed, at 6:04 a.m. And Microdots posed a question that I had as I was watching, which is why?
Why did he ask that question?
Right. Why? I mean, we know that he's questioning Jen McCabe in that moment because she's in the house.
Right.
So what is he trying to establish?
I'll be generous again.
Okay. Great.
I'll be the Corey Hopkins of this, who I love, by the way, because she always takes the more conservative stance, and then she finds out the thing, and she's like, "Oh, fuck you guys!" Like, she's amazing. Right. I will say at that point he may have been writing things down, and just to make get the time right, he called to ask. So that may be. That's me being generous. There's an ungenerous idea too, but keep in mind too that Jen McCabe called these guys again, called Lank again, got them to come back to the house after 9. After she, quote, remembered Karen Read saying, quote, could I have hit him? Not, I hit him at that point. And that was clearly after a conversation happened between her and the Alberts and so forth. And they sort of decided what they wanted the police to come back and hear. But, that's my generous theory. What is your theory?
Well, 2 things, just going back one step. Goode also testified that he never heard Karen say,
I know.
I hit him. So that was one interesting thing from his testimony. You know, I to me, it just feels like everyone's trying to get their story straight. That's the simplest answer to me. If he was in there with them for 20 minutes, so what happened? What did they tell him? What could people who were inside the house and said they knew nothing about what was going on outside tell him?
Just, where they went before, blah, blah, blah. We don't know. Maybe he got hit by a plow. I don't know. I'm a cop. How are you doing? How's your brother? I don't know. How's your brother? Did you see that game? Come on.
Yeah.
These are not like...
We saw Lucky driving down the road in his Franken truck a little while ago.
These
Maybe
aren't...
Lucky hit him.
This isn't the brain trust of Canton, Massachusetts here at this meeting.
Okay, so on to his report, which is, I think, a pretty major point. So apparently, allegedly, Goode changed the image on his report from a photo taken on 1/29/22, which is the night John O'Keefe died. And he took a photo of the berm, so the concrete berm on the sidewalk that leads to the lawn. And he changed that to a photo that was taken on the 4th of February, 2022, of a taillight piece over a shoe print, which is the same piece that Chief Burke found as he was driving by
claims
the
to have found as he was driving by the Alberts for no reason in the morning and couldn't see that well. So in the rain. I think it was raining too.
It was raining, and he was just happened to be driving by because they all were told to drive by and make sure they didn't miss anything. And sure enough, they missed something.
Oh, Berkey, good nice job. R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P. I think that this is my opinion, but I think Goode was the one responsible for making sure all the details on the initial report
were wrong.
Kept the Alberts out of it. Yeah. So he initially said that the call was to 32 Fairview.
Right.
That was on the report. And then he also just said he just used Brian Albert's initials.
BA.
So he was basically trying to disguise where they were going.
Right.
And I feel like that sort of consciousness of guilt.
Oh,
right there.
well, to me, it's consciousness of, even if it's not guilt, again, being generous, even if it's not consciousness of guilt, it's consciousness of the I protect the family mentality of these people. I don't want Brian Albert's name to be Googled and be connected with this thing. That's how they're already thinking. They're already thinking how do we keep it so that the Googling doesn't turn this up in Brian Albert's view. That's how they already think. And they don't think that about civilians. They only think that about fellow cops, friends, high school buddies, etc. So that's right. What it indicates to me.
What's interesting to me is in the 604 call, because that's when Goode said he spoke with Jen McCabe. And if I remember correctly, he was transferred. I think she was transferred to Canton Police Department, and that's when Goode got on the phone. And if you remember from that video that we watched and talked about last week, Sam's video about, sort of the psychological breakdown of Jennifer McKay's 911 call, she's doing her best to conceal the fact that it's an officer on the lawn.
Well, that's how it appears, for sure.
That's how it appears. And then in that same moment, Goode, once he realizes who's on the lawn, also starts to conceal whose house it is.
Yeah.
And it's just this code of this blue line again. Mm-hmm. And even the people who are just married into it, like Jen McCabe, Courtney Proctor, whoever, or she's not married into it, she's Proctor's sister. But the immediate instinct is to
protect.
And that scares the fuck out of me, I'll be honest.
That drives everything. That drives so many decisions that are made later. I mean, Kevin, our disagreement earlier was that he thought most of this early stuff stemmed only from the fact that John O'Keefe was a cop. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
It stemmed, I think, more from the fact that Brian Albert was a cop. And both things could be true, obviously. But it speaks to the attitude that informs this. Remember Proctor's text that said he's not going to catch any shit. He's Boston PD. Later that night. So that's even if at that point Proctor had done nothing wrong. Yeah. At that point, let's just pretend in our perfect world, that still informs the thinking that drives the investigation, and therefore it's important even if it's not quote on purpose nefarious at the time. So it's really important.
The only other thing I wanted to mention about Goode, and then we can move on to other things, is that and I don't know when this was. I want to look it up and figure out what the time frame was. But he was named the primary investigator for Canton PD by the Massachusetts State Police Cars Reconstruction Unit.
Amazing.
Yeah. So chew on that for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you want to add to the Goode situation?
Well, we'll be following it for sure. I mean, what's
Absolutely.
interesting to me is that the Canton PD yesterday morning sent out a statement saying an officer. And obviously there's all this reporting saying it was Goode.
Yeah.
First it was speculation that turned out to be true, and then it was reporting from outlets, and then they had to issue this second statement, which was then the confirmation. So clearly, like, there was an attempt to keep this low key that did not work out well for Canton. I mean, remember, this police department was audited, but the audit was not the audit that was actually that the residents wanted. It was a watered down version of the audit, in no small part because Chris Albert is on the select board. And the audit was largely positive. And clearly the audit was not rigorous enough because, I am fairly sure that other dominoes from the Canton PD will fall. And I think one of them has to do with, one of the things we're also going to talk about in this episode, which is the GPS story. So
that one's crazy to me. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I just think that it was funny because I was the one who was like, we found out about this on Friday. And I was like, Rebecca, should we get on the mic? And you were like, it hasn't been confirmed yet.
Let's confirm it.
Like, oh, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
So we waited for the official news, mainstream media basically to say, okay, we have his name
or
now,
anybody with a document that says it's him. So that's important. One of the things that bothered me Friday was I kept seeing all of these content creators go, especially one in particular, go breaking. Speculation that Goode is, but I'm like, that's
speculation.
Not. You cannot break news that is not confirmed. You can't break a story that isn't yet a story. That's actually not journalism. Even if you are a creative and often right journalist, breaking news is confirmed news. Period.
Yeah, and it's okay for, just like a regular old YouTube channel or LawTube or whatever. They can say whatever they want.
They can speculate, but they shouldn't call it breaking news.
For sure. Anyway, in breaking news, how about we talk about Michael Cox, Commissioner Michael Cox of the Boston Police Department, responding to Alan Jackson's request that he be put on the Brady list.
Okay, what did he say?
He said, this is his response, word for word. I'm going to quote it. What I need is to not be asked this question ever again pertaining to anything to do with the police department. My condolences to the O'Keefe family. But outside of that, this has nothing to do with us, and I'm not going to speak on this again.
He did say something about that he knows John O'Keefe was a cop, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, yeah, he did. Yeah, that's true. But this is the quote that there was that one line, yeah, you're right, about him.
That's what all those ellipses mean. It means they cut stuff out. But this is bullshit. He is a public official that when they answer, I don't want to be asked this question anymore, that is an unacceptable response from an appointed public official or from an elected public official. That is unacceptable. A public official should be willing to respond to a question over and over and over again. And if they've given the response, they should say, I answered this question earlier. Can we move on? They don't say, I want to not be asked the question again.
Especially when you lied.
That's wild.
Lied. Flat out lied.
Yeah.
Flat out lied. And there's proof that he lied. We have the receipts.
Thanks to Corey Hopkins, there is proof.
Yeah. And I mean, the idea that he has the audacity to say what he said when he flat out lied on camera to a reporter saying he had no idea and they'd never met and blah, blah, blah. And it's on his calendar and he has communication from the feds. What is he doing? He also is refusing to resign after the election. They've been calling for his resignation.
He's just doing what people in power do. This is the playbook of people in power. And this is the thing that, like, I know that, when I say things that are generalizations, people on Twitter are like, she's specifically wrong about this one specific thing. But
right. We get that a lot on YouTube as well.
People in power, there's a certain kind of person in power that believes that if they say something, everybody must bend to the thing that they are saying. And what he is saying is, I need to not be asked this question anymore. I'm not going to answer this question again. I need it to not be asked. Right. He believes he has the power to say that could work. Somewhere in his mind, he thinks it could work. And that he can just push it down in the Irish feelings box under the bed and never talk about it again. And that is like a model that we've seen more and more and more of people in power doing, like not acknowledging the accountability they have to the taxpayer, which is all the accountability they have. Like we, not me because I don't live in Boston, but Boston residents are paying his salary, and he should answer any question they have. And if it's an insane question, he can say, that's an insane question, not going to answer that one. But he shouldn't say, I want to not be asked questions. That is beyond the pale.
But the only way that we're going to get past this is if people, the citizens, continue to put pressure on these people, because the journalists are trying to do their job. They're trying to ask the hard questions. And he's saying to a journalist, I don't want to be asked this question anymore. Well, if the people of Boston decide to start asking him, he's going to need to answer it. Because I think the other issue...
Doesn't mean he will. Doesn't mean he will.
I know it doesn't mean he will, but I think there's one other layer to this, and that is folks in power have decided that they are not accountable to journalists at all.
Yeah.
They know they're accountable to the people. It doesn't mean they're going to do anything about it, but they are literally just swatting away journalists at this point.
Well, it just worked. I mean, the Fourth Estate has like completely, not completely, but for the most part, the Fourth Estate, local journalism has largely collapsed. The large outlets have changed the way they work because of a mistrust of the media that was planted in the public's mind on purpose in order to get this result. In order to get this result, the idea that media is fake, that it can't be trusted, all this stuff, that used to be, just watch All the President's Men, which I saw recently. Like, All the President's Men, yes, it's journalism porn, it's all this stuff, and it's very quaint, the scandals that Nixon had. So cute.
Yeah.
But it shows that in the old days, when reporters used to call and ask a question, it scared the shit out of people. And sometimes it still does. You know, there was a story that a reporter I work with, Jason Moon, was reporting the story on the YDC case. And he did all this data reporting and found out of all the 1,600 or whatever lawsuits that were filed, there was a man who was an abuser named over and over and over again. And that guy now had a position of power overseeing policy in the New Hampshire government around this very issue. He called his office and had to ask him questions about, and then the guy resigned the next day. Because he was, I mean, I can't get into his mind and say, in my opinion, it was likely because he was scared. Yeah. People used to be and should be nervous when a reporter calls them and asks them questions that they know will show something about them that's not favorable. But they're not scared anymore because the idea has been successfully incepted into the American public that journalists aren't scary, they're fake. Yeah. Which is so sad. It's so sad, and I don't know how we can recover from it, but it is one of the reasons why we're where we are right now, is this idea that if I show you a fact, if I show you even something from a government website, right, you'll still say, no, but that's not true because I used to work there and it's fine. And it's like,
no, because this person wrote it and I don't trust this person.
Yeah. But also but they don't believe what they read anymore, even if it's on a government website, even if it's in a report, even if it is a independent
science,
nonpartisan it's insane. Even if it's a tested hypothesis that's borne out, that was on purpose, and it was on purpose. Yeah. It was stoked by some politicians, and then it was reinforced by Russian bots and social media in a big way. And it worked. So that's where we are. Let's just acknowledge it.
And now we live in this sort of cesspool of cognitive dissonance.
Forever.
Forever. Okay. Anyway. Yep. So make noise and, hold your elected officials accountable. And the people who have also been like Michael Morrissey. I would like to, we don't need to cover it today, but at some point I would like to discuss what we think is Michael Morrissey's next moves are going to be.
Yeah, what the election's going to look like for him.
Yeah,
if he decides to run again.
I read a report somewhere that he has only raised $200.
I don't know if that's true, but he's been serving in this job since 2012 or something. He's had this will be like his. It's been like, I think something like 12 terms. He's been in this job forever, and
so he's basically Mitch McConnell.
Yeah. He's also Chuck Schumer. Yeah. He's also everybody that just in where they are just keeps getting reappointed again and again and again, reelected again and again and again by the public. So anyway.
Okay. All right, moving on. This is I'm going to let you take this one because this is the one that I'm not totally up on, but let's talk about these sidebars. I'm interested to see the results of it. I just don't know where we are.
Right.
So
First of
Take it away.
all, huge shout out to Corey Hopkins, a business litigator from North Carolina, who I would love to talk to on this show, by the way. I'm gonna
All right, I'll put her on the list.
I'm gonna ask if she'd come on. I think she follows me on Twitter, so I can
Amazing.
DM her. By the way, I love her handle. Her handle on Twitter is Marbury v. Mad. You know the significance of Marbury versus Madison, right? But Marbury versus Madison is considered to be one of the most important Supreme Court cases of all time. Marbury lost, by the way, which is lost to history. People always forget that. But what it did was it established judicial review, which means that the Supreme Court has the power to review laws, to review decisions, and say whether they're constitutional or not. And it had to do with Federalist versus Anti-Federalist. John Adams appointed Marbury to a position, a judgeship, I think a Justice of the Peace. So when Jefferson came in, he had Madison, who was working in the government and was, responsible for basically approving these commissions. Madison wouldn't prove it. And so Marbury took it to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court, ultimately, he lost, not because the Supreme Court thought he was wrong, but because of process. And process was Congress cannot make a law that we have to follow. And that was the judicial review that made him lose. But it's a very important case. Separation of powers was really, delineated by this case. So anyway, I love it that that's her handle. So she's the reason. This litigator from North Carolina is the reason why we have seen a lot of things we've seen lately. She's been a real pain in the dick to the Commonwealth, to the Norfolk County DA's office. She's basically like, you can't get this from FOIA requests, so I'm going to sue. So she's been filing lawsuits left and right. She's the reason we seen the email from Cox to the from to Cox from the DOJ pertaining to Kelly Dever. She is the reason why. Dever. She's the reason why we know forfeiture funds were raided to pay for the second prosecution of Karen Read and paying all their crazy expensive witnesses and stuff. Like, she's the reason we know this stuff and other things. Yep. So she just filed, she's been, her suit against the Norfolk County DA. She's looking for the sidebar conversations in Karen Read's trial to be unsealed. I
can't wait.
And the impoundment on those ended technically when the trial was over, and then it was extended, but that's over. Like, it's ended. The impoundment period has ended. So she filed a preliminary injunction, which is one of the most effective ways to get somebody to stop doing something or to do something, because it's basically like, preliminary injunction, you're not allowed to call me for the next 5 days because whatever, because it's like an urgent matter. She's filed this preliminary injunction to compel the Norfolk County DA's office to release the sidebar transcripts. The impoundment has expired again. But when she contacted them and said, where are they? They said they filed to keep them sealed a week ago, like on October 28th. However, that filing does not appear on any public filing docket or website. So what she says is that filing isn't visible. She says they filed a motion to raise a criminal case, but that filing is hidden. It doesn't even appear as a line item on the Read docket. Under Massachusetts law, the public has a right to seek to intervene in a case to challenge an impoundment order, but no one can intervene here because no one can see the NCDAO's filing even exists. And then she wrote, what the hell is going on here? And from today, she wrote, called the clerk's office this morning to try to get a copy of this motion filed in the Read case, but it affects my case. And they said, quote, this case is sealed. We can't give out any information on it anymore. Like, sealed by who? When? Why? So these are questions I have. Follow Marbury v. Mad, a.k.a. Corey Hopkins, for some of the best new Karen Read news that's coming out. She's amazing. She's really smart. She is the reason why all sorts of media have been able to report things and why we've seen things that we didn't see before. So I don't know how you're doing this in addition to your work, Corey, but keep at it, please.
So my question to you, or for your thoughts, is why do you think they don't want us to see the sidebars?
I think the sidebars probably are embarrassing.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that the sidebars probably contain arguments by Hank Brennan, etc., that would not, in retrospect, be favorable to the Norfolk County DA's office. That would not be favorable in terms of appearance, in terms of conduct. And I don't think that it's like we're protecting Judge Cannoni, but it does protect Judge Cannoni from further scrutiny in her decision making if these things don't come out. So it is a system. They protect their own. I think that's what's going on here. So I'll just leave it there.
It's interesting because this is totally hypothetical, but had Karen Read been convicted, I mean, I would assume that Bev's actions in those sidebars would be under scrutiny for any kind of reversible error.
Correct.
So it would be interesting to see the sidebars now to see if there actually wasn't anything in there that could have been reversible error. Because
we know there was reversible errors.
Of course.
We know. Yeah.
Of course. But I just wonder what that does if that information gets out that she kind of screwed up, because I'm assuming she screwed up. There were several things that she did that were just so messed up.
Right.
But anyway, I would really love to see the sidebars. I mean, that's just from my own.
Yes. 100% yes. I want to see the sidebars. Yes.
Okay, and then the last story that we have to tell is...
And then I have a small blind item, by the way, that I'm going to share.
Oh, so, perfect.
Yeah.
So Ted
Breaking
Daniels
news, blind item.
Breaking news, Rebecca comes with a blind item. So Ted Daniel, who is a local Boston reporter who's done really good work, I think, on the Karen Read case since the beginning, put out this amazing report in the past week. And in the report, so he was initially looking into Michael Proctor. And I think he was specifically looking at that trip that Michael Proctor took with Kevin Albert to the Cape, where they were working on a cold case. And that cold case was probably a cold case of Coors Light at a bar at the Treehouse Brewery in Sandwich. So he was looking into this, and then in the process, he had requested the Massachusetts State Police records for their GPS tracking system, which they have in all of their cars. The Massachusetts State Police spends nearly $70,000 a month on this GPS tracking system. And, obviously it was a good idea because they're trying to keep their troopers accountable to, where they're supposed to be and all that stuff. But they had one little loophole, and that is that hundreds of the cruisers had been equipped with a kill switch to turn that GPS off. Now,
which Proctor did. It shows his GPS data from that trip to the Cape. There's no GPS. He starts the car, drives for something like 6 seconds, and then it turns off.
And then he never leaves Canton. But then but they were in the Cape drinking. So anyway, they discovered Proctor's his GPS log because they had requested all of this GPS information from MSP. So yeah, Daniel found all of this information when he was going through he was reviewing disciplinary records about Michael Proctor. So my question immediately, let me ask you, what's the first thing that popped into your head from the Karen Read case that this would have something to do with?
The return trip from Dighton back to the Canton PD, where he allegedly followed the tow truck. But there was this huge time discrepancy where he may have been alone in the car with the car for 40 minutes. That's the first thing I think of. Is that what you were thinking of?
When I was reading this report, I'm like, that's what he did. That was my first thought was and he put the wrong time on the report too, remember?
Yes,
it was
an
purpose. Hour off.
Which he says was not on purpose, and then they said it was because of the clock switching or some bullshit. I don't know. Anyway.
Yes. Yeah. So, and he said it was a typo, but he made that same typo 70 times in, of course, other reports. So it's really interesting to me that, I just feel like every single day we're just sort of peeling back the onion and these little things are coming out that are just starting to fall into place. And I hope that we're going to get to the bottom of this. Do you find it odd that people really are not talking about Brian Higgins?
Yes. I find it incredibly odd. This is the difference between Proctor and Higgins is this. First of all, Karen Read did not get convicted. I believe if Karen Read were convicted, there would not be continued reporting on all this stuff. I'm not sure what would have happened to Michael Proctor, although I guess his fate was sealed before her verdict. But I'm not sure what would have happened with appeals and so forth if she had been convicted, because then there would be a storyline of, well, he was right because she was convicted, but the difference between Proctor and Higgins is that there was actually an investigation that is viewable to some extent by the public because it's a state agency. If Higgins has been looked at by his own employer, that's not something we'll see. We won't see it because the feds do not disclose their shit. That is a thing we know.
Right.
At least not voluntarily and at least not quickly. So I think there could be somebody looking into him? I don't know, but he has really skated under the radar. I guess it is. I have seen occasionally people seeing him in public places and him being belligerent to them and all that stuff. But for the most part, he's been able to be more under the radar because I think reporters would not have as much luck digging for documents related to him than they would for Proctor. What bothers me is that, and I said this at the time, why weren't these outlets investigating Proctor during the trials when it was clear that there was something off here, waiting for the trials to be over before digging into things? Now, granted, there was more available after the trials, but still looking into the number of complaints against him. And even if there were no complaints against him, that is a story. There's like a lot of stuff that looking into these institutions did not happen until after the trial. And it was like, oh, maybe this wasn't all an internet conspiracy, kind of took hold of some of these newsrooms. But yeah, Higgins right now is doing a good job relatively staying under the radar, for sure.
He just keeps coming up peripherally, though. So anytime some news drops, like with this good information, he's at the center of it again.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be talking about him. I mean, I think you're right, but I just wish that there was a way for us to have a little bit more information about what happened with him, and in my opinion, how he got away with it.
My one thing that I'm very happy about, because I guess again I've said this a million times, I really wanted a journalist to follow up on that cold case story. Now, Helena Rafferty did send a response to somebody, a journalist, who asked, and she said it was something called the Mosher case. Helena Rafferty is an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
That is a thing we know from Helena
Yes.
Rafferty's own communications, and it's also a thing we know through this incredible lawsuit that she's involved in around hitting an old man with her car on the way to TJ Maxx or something, and saying that she was technically working at the time, so she's covered by like the immunity stuff because she was emailing work while driving to or from TJ Maxx. Like, this is an unreliable narrator that took charge of an unreliable police department that the public wanted to be audited, defended them at every moment, sent the LOL email about the videos at the, didn't take any of this seriously. So when she responds with a one-line email that says it was the Mosher case, I'm like, I would still dig more if it were me, because she's not, also in 2025, we no longer take cops at their word when they say things. That's not how you report stories. You do not repeat what the cop said. You can say police say, and then we also did X, but So anyway.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we should probably wrap this up. So why don't you tell me you had something to add that
I have
I
a
don't
blind
know about?
item that I can't really flesh out right now for reasons, but I can say there is a prominent figure in the Karen Read case that is shopping a media project around with them at the center of it. And I know this because of my place in the industry. I've heard from several people who work in the industry, my industry. And I just say, knowing who this figure is and knowing what we saw of this figure's role in the case, the idea that they would have the gall to shop around themselves as IP for media projects, I can't say, because it would be betraying people who told me this in confidence. However, maybe at some point, this person will secure the media project they're hoping to secure, and then we can talk about the fact that it exists. So just going to leave it there.
All right. Okay. Well, we won't go into it any further because I don't want you to break your source, but that is very interesting, and my mind is going all over the place.
You would die. You would die.
I would die.
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit. Okay.
You would
we have to
literally
stop talking
die.
about it.
You'd be like,
Because I want to keep asking questions, and I know I can't, so we're gonna stop this
We'll
right
just
now.
stop
And
right
I am going to do a list of names of people who are amazing and have sent us tips over the past couple of weeks. And if I missed anybody, it's only because my Venmo didn't tell me your name. So hopefully I'm not missing anybody. But I just want to say thank you so much to, I'm just going to do first names here. Jody, Karen, Samantha, Jill, Brielle, Melissa, Barbara, Amy, Christy, Tara, Beth, Manish, Shannon, Jennifer, Isaac, Stacy, Marcella, Holly Ann, Yenny, Tracy, Audrey, Kelly, Robert, Heather, Elizabeth, Alexandra, and Jamie.
So nice.
You guys, you're amazing.
You rule. You rule.
Love you. Thank you so much. All
this
right,
would be
so
a good time
we
to
will...
put that Venmo graphic up again. So if you would
I
like
will
to
do
tip
that.
us for our work, because we're doing this and we really enjoy doing it, but it takes a lot of our time, especially one of us who's doing all the editing, not me. Feel free to support the work. We will keep doing it if we are seeing audience and if we're seeing support. So we really appreciate you for telling us that you think we're doing an okay job. So graphic.
Yeah, we appreciate you. Yes,
okay,
I'll put the graphic
now
up.
you can take
Thank
the graphic out if you want.
Thank you, Rebecca. Should I bring the music in now?
Yes. Fade it up.
All right, we will jump back on the mic on Thursday with a new episode out on Friday. But thanks for being here with us and have a good rest of the week.
All right. See you soon.
All right. Thanks.